Good afternoon on what is a mild and overcast day. It is Thursday, September the 9th. I'm back in the reading nook, of course, with a nice hot cup of tea. In this case, biscuit tea. Other types of tea are available. And I've got a pile of parcels, and what I'm going to and this lot, what I'm going to unbox today is this Dune Imperium, which is the board game based upon the forthcoming film. Now, Dune Imperium, Arrakis desert planet, raise your banner above the vast wasteland before you. As the great houses of the lands red marshal their forces and their spies, whom will you influence and whom will you betray? A tyrannical empire, the secretive Bene Gesserit, the shrewd Spacing Guild, the ferocious Fremen of the deep desert. The power of the Imperium can be yours, but war is not the only way to claim it. Dune Imperium blends deck building and worker placement in a deeply thematic new strategy game where the fate of the Empire hangs on your decisions. Will you seek political allies or rely upon military might? Economic strength or subtle intrigues? A council seat or a sharpened blade? The cards are dealt, the choice is yours, the Imperium waits. So, as I say, control the spice, control the universe, and it's designed for one to four players. Plays in 60 minutes to an hour to 2 hours, ages 13 plus. And it's published by the Direwolf. And here we go, so let's look on the back. I'll just show you that. Okay, so as you can see, lots of cubes and counters, cards because it's a deck building, and there's the board. Now, classically, Dune has had a board game for 40 years. The Dune board game, obviously, probably originally published by Avalon Hill, I think, most recently republished by Gale Force 9, and designed by the same people behind the board game Cosmic Encounter. And it's a deeply nasty thematic game of betrayal and counter-betrayal, basically of the classic factions, Bene Gesserit, Fremen, House Atreides, House Harkonnen, Spacing Guild, the Emperor, and so on. So that's been available for a long time, and there are a couple of expansions with the release of the 1984 David Lynch film, and then nothing. The game went out of print, and you could find it if you looked for it, but it got increasingly expensive, and then eventually Gale Force 9 brought it back into print. Now, with the new film, comes out on October 22nd, they have done new licensing deals, and of course that means not just a new role-playing game, because there is a new role-playing game, because there was a prior one, and you'll find a review of Dune Chronicles of the Imperium on my blog, and I might even have done an unboxing, I'm not quite sure. It means new board games as well. And the thing is, board games from 40 years ago are kind of hit and miss. Often, especially if they are based upon a franchise or a particular intellectual property. So there are numerous games out there based on a film or a TV series, and they're simplistic, don't really capture any of the theme, and ultimately they become collector's pieces, renowned for can be connected to the franchise rather than being good games. But the great thing is that with the renaissance in board games, which has come about since the release of basically Settlers of Catan, and now known as Catan, and then the past 25 years, people have started doing looking at intellectual properties, but essentially as a way to sell games, sell designs, but couple the game, basically the intellectual property, with a proper thematic game design. So, for example, take the board game Jaws. Essentially, that's a cooperative game between the three main members of the cast. Okay, against essentially the shark. One player controls the shark, who goes around eating the swimmers off the island, whilst the the other player's trying to find him and drive the shark off, and then eventually go to sea and face the shark in the boat, and the shark comes and basically tries to tromp the boat apart. So it's incredibly thematic, it's cooperative, and it fits the film. And again, so thus we have a game like Dune coming out, which from all accounts fits the theme of the board game, of the intellectual property, which is politics, intrigue, battle, and essentially all in a great attempt to retain or gain power. And of course, being modern, it means it comes with great production values, or if not great ones, better ones than in previous years. I mean, so for example, I go back to that Jaws board game. Well, the characters themselves essentially little wooden meeple pieces, as you would expect, but in addition, they've got little basically boats they can go around on at sea, around the island. So there's the board game, and again, there's the back. And we open up. Opens nicely. And inside, first thing we have is that. And that is that's the rules. It doesn't even say it's a rule book. On the back you've got icon guide and additional terms, but this is the rulebook. Bright, easy to read. I can see just looking at that, it's really nicely laid out. You can see everything. A lot of thought has been put into how this rulebook reads and looks, so that you can see everything. So okay, here's the setup. You have a complete guide to the setup. Long gone are dense, dull rulebooks. They happen, but again, it's like game design. It gets better and better, and it takes you through all of the different phases of a turn. So you've done setup, you've got game overview and major concepts there. Then we go on to round structure, so different phases, and full explanation essentially of what each player does on their turn. Phase 2, player turns, agent turn, reveal turn, and so on. Combat, markers, recall, and so on. Clarifications, end game, strategy tips at the end as well. And again, this is designed by Direwolf, but it is done through Gale Force 9. So essentially you have two board games basically for the same property coming from through the same publisher. And if you lastly, basically, you've got, I think, basically, if you don't necessarily want to read the rule book, you probably will, but there's a link to a video as well, a QR code. So next, underneath that, a bit of advertising for a generic, basically for the app. Bit of advertising. Then we have a guide to House Hagar Code. You've got solo and 2-player games. These are a bit flimsy, I've got to be honest. They're a bit large and flimsy to really handle. And then we've got essentially a board space guide. So you've got a complete guide to the board itself. That's double-sided. And there's the counters. So that was next that. So that's for one faction. And then underneath that we have the board itself, which I'll open up. So it's not actually a very big board. It's no board bigger. It's actually probably about the same size as the board for the classic Dune board game. There we go. And lastly we have bags, counters. So presumably those are water counters, because obviously it's a desert planet. Presumably that represents spice. I don't know what that represents, that's fine. And again, but it's great, but essentially these come in they're in Ziploc bags, so they're easy to pack away. It's not a case of us actually having to go out and find our own Ziploc bags. I really appreciate basically a board game publisher doing that, because essentially there isn't a case of, okay, I've got to unbox this, take everything apart, and then put it back into bags for easy storage. One empty bag, but that's for the character faction cards. So you have different houses. So as you can see, Duke Leto Atreides of different characters. So there we go. So that's obviously, you can see that's directly based off the movie, because that's off that actor Isaac's, not Jeremy Isaacs, but I can't remember. It was Oscar Isaacs, I believe, and then Paul Atreides. But and what you've got on the back is a quick guide to how the game is played. Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. Glossu Beast of Ravan, he's the first of his nephews, and then Earl Memnon of Thorvald, House Thorvald, not a faction I know, but basically that could easily be the new one. Countess Ariana Thorvald, there we go. And then how from Helena Riches and Count Ilban Riches, which are given. Basically, I remember those from the background, because obviously, I mean, I'm a Dune fan. I've read the books when I was a teenager. I've enjoyed the TV series. I actually enjoy the David Lynch movie, despite its many flaws. And we have essentially different various cards. Okay, so to say, yeah, just a deck of cards there, just a deck. Okay, and then yeah, that's not a deck. That's a block of cards. So you get quite a lot in here. There's all very nicely presented. I would say. And all packs down quite nicely into that. And all packs neatly away. So that's Dune, the Imperium. So I hope to be able to bring that to the table. Of course, getting people around to play board games is a challenge in itself these days. Yeah, Dune the Imperium. By all accounts, I've heard this actually plays very well. Basically, because I like both worker placement and deck building games, and so it's basically coming together of mechanics which I like. So yeah, that's Dune Imperium. Worth tracking down, especially if you're a fan of the setting. I want to try essentially a more modern approach to playing that, essentially the same story as the original board game, but with more modern mechanics and basically design ideas. So I hope you've enjoyed that unboxing in the Nook. If you have, please do click the like button down below, and if you've got any comments or feedback, please post those. I do appreciate you taking the time, and I do read them and respond as I can. And lastly, of course, if you want to be alerted to yet more unboxings of the Nook, where you will see me here with some parcels, a game to unbox, and 10 minutes of your time and my time whilst I talk as knowledgeably as I can upon my first impressions of the contents of the box, all accompanied, of course, by a nice hot cup of tea. Then please do hit that subscribe button. In the meantime, thank you again for watching another unboxing in the Nook. If you've enjoyed this unboxing, thank you very much. I'll be back again soon with another unboxing. Bye for now.